This seems like it's something that we go back to every single couple months or so. There's been nothing, or a Nintendo Direct goes by and there's nothing, and then people keep on begging, and then all of a sudden there's a leak, and then all of a sudden people say, okay, it's happening, but then nothing happens, and it's the perpetual cycle of where is the four horsemen of the port beg apocalypse. Well, we got one of them with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, which I do think is going to factor in what we're talking about here with The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD coming over to Nintendo Switch, and The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD coming over to Nintendo Switch, and Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. There's still a few more other games on the Wii U that could or could not come over, but people have been talking about these older games for quite some time now. We've got a brand new leak of The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker coming over to Nintendo Switch, and I wanted to talk about that in addition to a few other things that I think is pretty obvious at this point. But before we get into all that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more first. Now let's go ahead and jump right into this, because over on Twitter, good old Twitter, there's like some type of foreign websites. They have listed The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD for the Nintendo Switch, and it's got a placeholder, and for some reason I don't like it. I know some of you guys like it, maybe if you're foreign or whatever the case is, but here in the US I don't like it when you put the day in front of the month. I like to have the month first instead of the day. But anyway, it says 31/12/2024, so that's a placeholder because that's the last day of 2024 this year, so that's a placeholder. And there's a bunch of other games that are confirmed that are actually going to come out. Stuff like Flintlock and stuff like The Slender, The Arrival VR, and Donkey Kong Country Returns. But that really should be more like, I think that's the 16th. But either way, there's some stuff that's correct on here. Then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, Wind Waker is just kind of like right in the middle of this list. Shout outs to everybody who put this up. I saw this from Master of Hyrule, but I've seen other videos and things on it. I wanted to give my 2 cents on what I know about The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD and potentially some other games as well. So once again, this has been happening for quite some time. It's actually been quite comical to see people all generation, to see the rumors all generation, and for it to not happen at this point yet. The last one that we got recently from the port beg apocalypse was Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. People have been asking for that all generation. We have not gotten it all generation until the very end down here at this point, March 20th for that game. So here's the thing. I think that once we saw that game, and I think it was pretty obvious we saw that game, and we saw stuff like Metroid Prime Remastered, I think that it's pretty clear that we're going to be getting The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD and Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3. I think it's very, very obvious at this point that we're getting all them. And I think that it's very obvious at this point too that Nintendo won't stop releasing Switch games even after the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out. Whether they just release it on the Switch and then you can play it via backwards compatibility, or they have a Switch 2 version and a Switch 1 version, or they have a Switch 1 version and then a patch that updates things for Switch 2. I think it's very clear that Nintendo will probably just still release games on the Nintendo Switch, and even while the Nintendo Switch 2 is a thing and being marketed or even out, I think that they are switching over, no pun intended, or moving over to being able to do something like that. They've never really done that before. I think the closest thing that you can say maybe is the 3DS and the Switch, but once again, those are two different systems. When it comes to a singular platform, Nintendo usually drops that platform like a bad habit and then moves on to the next thing. There are some systems where you might see a little bit of that extra support even after the next system comes out. Like I know with the Nintendo DS, there were still a few games. The Pokemon Company released a new Pokemon game after the Nintendo 3DS came out, and they said, hey, well, if you want to play it on your 3DS, you can. You know why? Because it's backwards compatible, so you don't have to worry about, about that. So people are like, okay, well, I guess so. And then later we got Pokemon X and Y, the actual game built for the Nintendo 3DS and looks so much better and all that. So that was pretty cool back then. But if you're looking at it now in today's day, Nintendo's probably going to still support the Nintendo Switch. So I think that's why they're spreading these things out. We've got a number of big games. We had Metroid Prime Remastered year plus so ago. We got Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. We've had a plethora of other remasters, remakes, Xenoblade Chronicles, all sorts of stuff. We've gotten it sprinkled throughout the whole generation, and I don't think Nintendo's going to stop. So while I don't think this placeholder means that it's coming more so than anything. I think that it was already a guarantee, in my opinion at least, that The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD was going to come to the Nintendo Switch at some point, was going to be ported over at some point. I think that The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD is once again going to come over at some point. Just like I always held faith, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition coming over every year, 2020, 2021, 2022, but eventually it was happening. And they actually made it way better than what I thought it would be. I thought it would just be a straight up port. Like, I didn't think they're going to really do much to it. I thought it was just going to be like a straight up port of the game, but they're actually doing a lot to it. So if you haven't seen my videos talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition and the upgrades that Nintendo hasn't told us about yet, though, that's being in theory at this point, check that video out, link in the description. But when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, yeah, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. It's just a matter of when they're going to actually do it. Now, this placeholder says 2024. Clearly, it's not happening this year, guys. I mean, if Wind Waker HD was happening this year, we would have already known about it, because Nintendo would like to have a little bit of a marketing cycle for a game that size or a game that big. So yeah, if it was happening this year, we would have known about it. But I do think that The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD will come over in 2025. Probably, potentially, they could do something sneaky here and put it in February. Depending on when they launch Pokemon Legends ZA or Metroid Prime 4, which I do think those are probably more second half games or late first half / second half games. I think that we could get an announcement sometime early next year, and it drops fairly close to the announcement of the game. People already know about it. You don't need too much of a build up for it. So I would say that February, if they do have like an announcement, I think that might be a good month for it. I mean, there's really nothing right now slated for April. Nintendo still has their next generation games that they're going to talk about and announce probably next year as well, along with a lot of games that they ported over and they're just trying to slot. I think that Nintendo kind of overdid things potentially. I mean, not a bad thing when you do this, but they kind of had so many games when it comes to the end of the life of the Nintendo Switch because of the overwhelming success of the system. They were kind of spreading things out and not exactly sure, but then like, whoa, wait a minute, hold up, the next system's coming too. So I do think that kind of factored into their strategy. Wind Waker HD will factor into that dual, I would say, console support strategy a bit. And I think that it would make complete sense. I mean, if you have a system that has sold 140 million units compared to a system that's not out yet, right? Or that's going to have a much smaller install base, you're probably going to want to make sure that you sell some of those games that are late in the life or early in the Switch 2 life. Like, you want to have some of those games available on the massive platform. That's why when people say, oh, well, Metroid Prime 4, is it not going to be on Switch? Are they going to cancel the Switch version? No, Nintendo wouldn't do anything that stupid. One, they've already stated multiple times it's coming to Switch, but two, you have a massive install base to sell the game to. And I think that's where these games kind of factor into, to where even if it's late or even to where it's when the Nintendo Switch 2 is out, you can still sell the game to hundreds of millions of people playing the Nintendo Switch. There's so many active users. There's so many people that enjoy the system, and that still to this day, believe it or not, still selling decently for a system in its 7th, 8th plus year. In Japan, it's still the leading system by a large margin. Like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series aren't even close when it comes to sales in Japan. The software sales dominated by Nintendo Switch. So you can still release The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, Metroid Prime 2 and 3. You can release those on Nintendo Switch even into the Nintendo Switch 2 or successor life, and people are still going to be there to buy it. I mean, you're seeing similar things with the PlayStation 4. People still go out there and play PlayStation 4 games. There are still a handful of big titles where people predominantly play on the PlayStation 4, which is why companies still support the PlayStation 4, although more are starting to move over to the current systems overall. But you still see that support for PlayStation 4. Metaphor ReFantazio is a very good example of that. Big RPG from Atlas, also on PlayStation 4. SMT5 Vengeance, Persona 3 Reload, you name it, it's on PS4 as well. So a lot of these Japanese developers, Nintendo included in that of course, are going to be supporting what they've done before and also the newer systems. It just makes sense for sales. It makes sense if you want to have the best potential output for your company to do. And I think that there's still, once again, a number of people who have not picked up a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series or have some type of massive gaming PC that want to be able to play the games. Nintendo here has 140 million plus Nintendo Switch systems After the holiday, it's going to be probably 150 million or very close to 150 million. The newest sales are out, 146 million plus. So it's probably going to hit about 150 million after the holiday, which is incredibly good. Obviously, only 3 systems in the history have done that. So yeah, it would make sense to have Wind Waker HD on that platform at some point, regardless of whenever they get it done. I mean, I wish it was a lot sooner so we wouldn't have a whole generation of people asking for it. But obviously, they were trying to kind of counteract that and balance it with the new Zelda games that are coming out. Wind Waker HD, it's listed here. Twilight Princess HD is not listed, but I think that that's coming as well. So I think that's just going to be something that we see overall. And yeah, I'm looking forward to potentially playing them again. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm excited about it. It's cool. But I've already beat these games a number of times. So I need to see some dramatic improvements for me to actually say, okay, I'm super excited to kind of get into it and everything. Because this would be the 3rd release for Wind Waker, because it released on the GameCube and it released on the Wii U. And then this would be, I think, the 4th release for Twilight Princess. Yeah, because it released on the GameCube, the Wii U, and if it released again on Switch, that would be the 4th release. And I've beaten them each time, and I've also replayed it. So for me, it's kind of like, okay, cool, but I've played these games and beat them a number of times. I mean, it's still good to have, though. I want to have them physical. I want to be able to have the game just in case, be able to let somebody else play it if they want to play it. My boy's getting bigger and bigger. I think one of these days he's going to want to play. So, like, it's cool, right? I have no problem with that. I think that games from the Wii era, from the GameCube era, from the older systems, all those should be ported over in some way, shape, or form, or online digital purchase, NSO, whatever the case is. So I really want it to happen. It's just, I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, it's crazy, unless I see what's happening with the games. Now, if they add some cool content and there's some other things in there, they really improve it, then okay, I'm excited. Just like Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition getting some major upgrades, new story elements. That's exciting, but we'll see overall what happens. But yeah, guys, listen, it's probably going to happen at some point. I don't think this placeholder really means too much, but I mean, it's there. But yeah, it's going to happen. But what do you guys think overall about The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD for the Nintendo Switch, Twilight Princess HD for the Nintendo Switch, potentially Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3? Still haven't gotten those yet. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch and RPG videos right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.